The thunderclap that shook the Arizona sky in the summer of 1882 was nothing compared to the sound of a man's body hitting Cara Emerson's wooden porch. She had been kneading bread dough in her small kitchen when the crash startled her so badly that flour dusted the air like snow. Her heart hammered as she grabbed the rifle by the door, her father's old Winchester that she had sworn never to use but kept loaded just in case. The Arizona Territory was not a place where a woman lived alone without taking precautions, especially not 5 miles outside of Sierra Vista, where help was more hope than certainty. When she pushed open the door, rifle raised, she found him sprawled across the weathered planks, blood seeping through his shirt in dark patches that spread like spilled wine. He was face down, one arm twisted beneath him, his hat lying several feet away where it had rolled. His horse, a magnificent chestnut stallion, stood nearby with reins dragging in the dust, sides heaving and foam flecked across its neck. The animal looked as exhausted as its rider, who was not moving at all. Cara's first instinct was to shut the door and pretend she had seen nothing. A wounded man on her property could mean trouble, could mean outlaws or posses or any number of dangerous situations that a 23-year-old woman living alone had no business getting involved in. But even as she thought it, she was setting down the rifle and kneeling beside him, her fingers finding the pulse at his neck. It was there, faint but steady, and that decided everything. She had nursed her father through his final illness 2 years ago, sitting beside his bed as consumption ate away at his lungs until there was nothing left but memories and this homestead. She knew wounds and fevers, knew which herbs helped and which were worthless folk remedies. What she did not know was how to get a man who looked to weigh close to 200 pounds into her house by herself. The stranger groaned when she tried to roll him over, and his eyes fluttered open for just a moment. They were blue, the color of the sky after a storm had cleared, and they fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then they closed again, and he went limp. "Well, this is a fine mess," she muttered, grabbing him under the arms. She dragged him inch by painful inch across the porch and through the door, grateful that her floors were smooth wood and not the rough-hewn planks of some homesteads. By the time she got him to the spare room where her father had died, her arms were shaking and sweat had plastered her dark hair to her forehead. She cut away his shirt with her sewing scissors, revealing a chest that was broad and tanned and marred by 2 bullet wounds. One had grazed his left shoulder, leaving a furrow that bled freely but did not look too deep. The other had gone clean through his right side, just above his hip, and that one worried her. The exit wound at his back was larger than the entry, and when she pressed clean cloth against it, he convulsed and cried out without waking. Cara worked through the afternoon, boiling water and tearing sheets into bandages, cleaning the wounds with whiskey that made him thrash even in unconsciousness. She packed them with clean cloth soaked in a tincture of golden seal and yarrow, herbs she had gathered herself from the high country. Her father had always said she had healing hands, that she could have been a proper doctor if the world allowed such things for women. She had laughed at him then, but now she found herself praying he had been right. The stranger ran hot with fever by nightfall. She sponged his forehead with cool water and dripped willow bark tea between his cracked lips, hoping enough would get down his throat to help. He muttered in his delirium, words she could not quite make out, names that meant nothing to her. Once he called out for someone named Thomas, his voice breaking with such anguish that it brought tears to her own eyes. On the second day, she went outside to tend his horse. The stallion was still standing near her small barn, too well trained to wander but clearly in distress. She approached slowly, speaking in the soft voice she used with her own animals, and the horse allowed her to remove his saddle and bridle. The saddle was fine leather, tooled with intricate patterns and fitted with silver conchos that caught the sunlight. This was not a poor man's tack. The saddlebags were heavy, but she did not open them. Whatever was inside was his business, not hers, though curiosity itched at her. She rubbed the horse down and put him in the corral with her 2 mares, who sniffed at him with interest. He drank deeply from the water trough and then stood in the shade of the lean-to, head hanging low. She forked hay to all 3 animals and checked the chickens, her mind only half on the chores. The wounded man in her house was a mystery, and mysteries in the Arizona territory often turned dangerous. By the 3rd day, his fever broke. She had just finished changing his bandages, noting with relief that the wounds showed no signs of infection, when his eyes opened. They were clearer now, focused, and they tracked her movements as she set aside the soiled cloths. "Where am I?" His voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. "My home. 5 miles outside Sierra Vista. You collapsed on my porch 3 days ago with 2 bullet holes in you." She poured water from the pitcher and held it to his lips. He drank greedily, water running down his chin. "Sierra Vista," he repeated, as if testing the words. "I made it further than I thought. Who shot you?" He was silent for a long moment, his gaze moving around the room, taking in the simple furniture and the curtains she had sewn herself. "Men who wanted me dead. Well, they nearly succeeded. Another few hours and you would have bled out." She set the cup aside. "I am Cara Emerson. This is my property. Vincent Zane." He tried to sit up and fell back with a groan. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that you will be staying put for at least a week. You took 2 bullets. One grazed your shoulder, but the other went clean through your side. You are lucky it did not hit anything vital. Does not feel lucky." He closed his eyes, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands gripped the blanket. "My horse, safe in my corral, fine animal, probably saved your life getting you here. Thunder. His name is Thunder." Vincent opened his eyes again and looked directly at her. "Miss Emerson, I owe you my life. That is not a debt I take lightly. You do not owe me anything. I would have done the same for anyone." That was not entirely true, but it sounded like the right thing to say. "Still, I am grateful." He was quiet for a moment. "You live here alone?" "My father passed 2 years ago. It is just me now." "That must be hard." She stood, gathering the soiled bandages. "I manage. You need to rest now. I will bring broth in a few hours." "Miss Emerson." She paused at the door. "Thank you." She nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall and took a shaky breath. Vincent Zane. She had never heard the name, but something about the way he carried himself, even wounded and flat on his back, suggested he was someone important. The fine horse, the expensive saddle, the educated way he spoke all pointed to a man of means. But men of means did not usually end up shot and fleeing for their lives. Over the next few days, Vincent grew stronger. She brought him meals and changed his bandages, and they talked in the careful way of strangers feeling out common ground. He asked about her father, and she told him about the homestead, about how her father had claimed this land back in 1870 and spent 12 years proving it up. She did not tell him about the loneliness, about how some nights the silence was so complete it felt like drowning. He told her little about himself, only that he had been in Sierra Vista on business when things had gone wrong. He did not say what kind of business, and she did not ask. It seemed safer not to know. On the 5th day, she helped him to sit up properly, propping pillows behind his back. His color was better, the pallor of blood loss replaced by something closer to health. The shoulder wound was healing well, already knitting together, but the side wound would take longer. She had seen similar injuries take weeks to fully close. "You are a good nurse," he said as she rewrapped the bandages. "Where did you learn?" "My father was sick for nearly a year before he passed. I learned by necessity." She tied off the bandage. "And my mother, before she died when I was young, she knew herbs and remedies. I remembered what I could. I am sorry about your parents. It was God's will, or so the preacher says." She heard the bitterness in her own voice and regretted it. "I should not speak so." "Why not? If you feel it, say it. Too many people hide behind polite words." She looked at him then, really looked at him. He had a strong face, not handsome in the classical sense, but arresting, with a straight nose and a firm jaw, dark with several days of beard growth. His hair was brown with hints of gold where the sun had lightened it, and it fell across his forehead in a way that made her fingers itch to brush it back. She clasped her hands together firmly. "You sound like you speak from experience," she said. "I have spent too much time around people who say one thing and mean another. It gets tiresome." He shifted against the pillows. "You are different. You say what you think. Living alone makes you forget to dissemble. There is no point in lying to yourself." "No, I suppose there is not." He smiled, and it transformed his face entirely, making him look younger and more carefree. "Though I imagine you manage just fine out here on your own." "I do what needs doing. The animals need tending, the garden needs watering, the house needs keeping. The work does not stop just because I am one person instead of two." "Have you thought about selling? Moving to town?" The suggestion stirred something dark in her chest. "This land is all I have left of my father. I will not sell it." "I was not suggesting you should. I was only asking if you had considered it. Everyone considers it. The banker in Sierra Vista makes sure I know he has buyers interested any time I go to town. But this is my home." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "Then you are stronger than most people I know." She did not know what to say to that, so she gathered the medical supplies and left him to rest. But his words stayed with her as she went about her chores, as she fed the chickens and collected eggs, as she weeded the garden in the long slant of afternoon light. Stronger than most people. She did not feel strong. She felt tired and uncertain and sometimes desperately lonely, but she kept going because there was no other choice. That night, she heard him moving around and went to check on him. She found him sitting on the edge of the bed, breathing hard. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You should be resting." "I needed to stand. I have been lying down for almost a week. And you will be lying down for at least another week if you do not want those wounds to open up again." She moved to his side. "Come on, back into bed. I am not an invalid." "No, you are a stubborn man who is going to hurt himself." She put her hand on his good shoulder. "Please, just lie back down." He looked up at her, and something passed between them, some current of awareness that made her pulse quicken. His eyes were so blue, and he was close enough that she could see the darker ring around the iris, could see the faint lines at the corners from squinting into the sun. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then he lay back and she stepped away, heart pounding harder than it should. "You are right," he said quietly. "I apologize. I am not used to being laid up." "Well, you had better get used to it for a while longer." Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "I will check on you in the morning." She fled to her own room and lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. This was foolishness. He was a stranger who would leave as soon as he was well enough. She could not afford to let herself feel anything for him. She had learned that lesson the hard way 3 years ago when James Parker had courted her with pretty words and promises, only to marry the banker's daughter instead, when he learned that Cara's father had more debts than assets. She would not be foolish twice. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Vincent's face, saw the way he had looked at her in that suspended moment. She told herself it meant nothing. She told herself she was imagining things. She told herself a lot of lies that night. The next morning, she found him up and dressed in clothes from his saddlebags, clean trousers and a shirt that he had managed to pull on despite his injuries. He was pale but standing, and he gave her a determined look. "Before you scold me, I needed to check on Thunder, and I need some fresh air. I will go mad if I spend another day staring at those walls. You are impossible. I have been told that before." He moved toward the door, walking carefully but steadily. "Will you come with me? Make sure I do not collapse in your yard," she sighed, but followed him outside. The morning was clear and already warm, promising another hot day. Thunder whinnied when he saw Vincent and trotted over to the fence. Vincent stroked the horse's nose, murmuring to him in a low voice. The affection between man and animal was obvious. "He is a beautiful horse," Cara said. "He was a gift, best horse I have ever owned." Vincent scratched behind Thunder's ears. "He has gotten me out of more than one tight spot." "What sort of tight spots require running from bullets?" Vincent glanced at her. "The kind that happen when you stand up to men who are used to getting their own way." "That is not much of an answer." "No, it is not." He turned to face her fully. "Miss Emerson, Cara, I need to be honest with you. The men who shot me may come looking. I should leave as soon as I am able. I do not want to bring trouble to your door." "Who are they?" He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Men who work for Frank Dutton. Do you know the name?" "Everyone in this part of Arizona knows that name. He owns half the businesses in Sierra Vista and most of the rangeland for 30 miles around. People say he came out here after the war with nothing and built an empire." She studied his face. "Why are his men trying to kill you?" "Because I own the other half." The words hung in the air between them. Cara stared at him, trying to reconcile this information with the wounded stranger she had been nursing. "You own half the county, more or less. My father started buying up land back in the 60s. When he died 5 years ago, it all came to me. Dutton has been trying to buy me out ever since, but I will not sell, so he has moved to other methods. Like murder." "Like murder?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "I went into town to meet with the land office to record some new claims. His men ambushed me on the way back. I managed to get away, but they hit me twice before I lost them." "And you rode here?" "I rode until I could not ride anymore. Your homestead was the first place I saw. I am sorry for bringing this to you." Cara's mind was racing. Frank Dutton was not a man to cross. Everyone knew the stories. The homesteaders who had refused to sell and then found their wells poisoned, their cattle scattered, their barns mysteriously catching fire. No one could prove anything, but everyone knew. "You should have told me sooner." "Would it have changed anything?" "Would you have turned me away?" She wanted to say yes, but she knew it was not true. "No, but I deserve to know what I was getting into. You are right. I apologize." He looked tired suddenly, the brief burst of energy fading. "I will leave today. I have put you at risk long enough. You will not make it a mile before you fall off your horse, and if Dutton's men are watching the roads, you will be dead by nightfall." She crossed her arms. "You will stay until you are well enough to travel properly, but you will tell me everything. I will not be kept in the dark about what is happening on my own property." He studied her for a long moment, and she saw respect dawn in his eyes. "All right, I will tell you everything." They sat on the porch and he talked. He told her about his father, about growing up on a ranch that kept expanding as Samuel Zane bought up land from homesteaders who failed or sold out. He told her about learning the business, about realizing that his father's success had sometimes come at the cost of other people's dreams. He told her about taking over after his father's death and trying to do better to be fairer, but finding himself in opposition to men like Frank Dutton who saw any kindness as weakness. "Dutton wants what I have," Vincent said. "He wants the rangeland and the water rights. If he gets them, he will control everything from here to the mountains. He will be able to charge whatever he wants, squeeze out anyone who will not play by his rules. So you are standing in his way. I am trying to, but I am one man and he has money and guns and no conscience. What about the law, the sheriff? Vincent laughed, but there was no humor in it. The sheriff is on Dutton's payroll, half the town council too. There is no law that will help me. Then what will you do? Keep fighting? Keep buying land so he cannot? Keep standing up every time he tries to knock me down? He looked at her. I know how that sounds, like stubborn pride, but if I give in, a lot of people will suffer. Small ranchers who lease grazing rights from me, homesteaders who depend on access to the river that runs through my property. Dutton will cut them all off. So you are protecting them. I am trying to. Cara was quiet, absorbing all of this. The wounded stranger on her porch had turned out to be Vincent Zane, one of the most powerful men in the county. And he was locked in a war with another powerful man, a war that had already turned violent. She should send him away. She should want nothing to do with this. But instead, she found herself asking, "What can I do to help?" He looked startled. "You have already done more than I had any right to ask." "That is not what I asked. You said Dutton is watching the roads, so you cannot leave until you have a plan. While you are here, while you are healing, what can I do? Why would you want to help me? This is not your fight, maybe not. But I know what it is like to have someone try to take what is yours. The banker in Sierra Vista has been pressuring me to sell since my father died. He sends men out here every few months to remind me how hard it is for a woman alone, how much easier it would be to just sell and move on. I have always wondered who he is really working for." She met Vincent's eyes. "I would guess Frank Dutton, probably. He wants every scrap of land he can get. Then his enemy is my ally." Vincent shook his head slowly. "You do not know what you are saying. Dutton is dangerous." "I am not stupid. I know the risk. But I am tired of being pushed around. I am tired of being told I am too weak or too female to hold onto my own property. If helping you means standing up to that, then I will help." Something shifted in Vincent's expression, a warmth that had not been there before. "You are remarkable, do you know that?" She felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I am stubborn. There is a difference." "I am not so sure." He stood carefully, testing his strength. "All right. If you truly want to help, I need to get a message to my foreman. His name is Thomas Garrett. He will be worried and probably out looking for me. If Dutton's men catch him, they will use him to get to me." "Where is he?" "My ranch is 15 miles north of here, but I cannot ask you to ride there. It is too dangerous. Is there somewhere closer we could meet him? Some way to let him know you are alive?" Vincent thought for a moment. "There is a line shack on the north edge of my property about 8 miles from here. Thomas checks it regularly. I could leave a message there." "Then we will ride there tomorrow. You should rest today, build your strength." "Cara, I cannot let you do this." "You are not letting me do anything. I am choosing to." She stood and faced him. "You said you owe me a debt. Let me decide how you repay it." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. "Tomorrow, then. Thank you." That evening, Cara made a proper dinner, the first real meal she had cooked since Vincent arrived. She made stew with beef and vegetables from her garden and biscuits that came out golden and flaky. They ate on the porch, watching the sun set over the distant mountains, and talked about easier things. He told her about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before he could properly walk, about his mother who had died when he was 10. She told him about her childhood in Missouri, about coming west with her parents when she was 12, about the excitement and terror of those first years in Arizona territory. "You ever miss Missouri?" he asked. "Sometimes. I miss the green, the trees. Here everything is brown and dry." She smiled. "But there is a beauty here too. It just takes time to see it." "I have always thought so. The desert has its own kind of grace. They were quiet for a while, listening to the evening sounds, the chirp of crickets and the distant howl of a coyote. The air was cooling, bringing relief from the day's heat. Cara was acutely aware of Vincent beside her, of the way the fading light caught in his hair, of the steady sound of his breathing. This felt dangerously close to contentment, to something she had not allowed herself to want in a long time. "Can I ask you something?" Vincent said. "Of course. Why did you never marry? A woman like you, I would have thought you would have had plenty of offers." The question stung, but she tried not to show it. "There was someone once, 3 years ago. But he chose someone else when he realized my father's homestead came with more debt than value. Then he was a fool, perhaps, or perhaps he was practical. Love does not pay bills or secure futures. Love should not have to." Vincent turned to look at her. "You deserved better than that." "We all deserve better than we get. That is just life. It does not have to be." There was something in his voice that made her meet his eyes. In the twilight they were darker, more gray than blue, and the way he was looking at her made her heart stutter. She should look away. She should make some light remark and break this moment before it became something she could not take back. But she did not move, did not speak, just sat there as the space between them seemed to shrink. "Cara," he said softly, "I should not say this. I have no right. But since I met you, since I woke up in your house and saw you taking care of me, I have not been able to stop thinking about you. Vincent. I know. I know all the reasons this is a bad idea. I know I am putting you in danger just by being here. I know I will have to leave soon and go back to fighting a war I might not win. But I cannot lie to you. I cannot pretend I do not feel this." Her throat was tight. "Feel what?" "That you are the most extraordinary woman I have ever met. That the thought of leaving you tears at me. That if circumstances were different, if I were different, I would want nothing more than to stay right here on this porch with you for the rest of my life." The words hung between them, fragile and precious. Cara felt tears prick at her eyes. "Circumstances are not different. I know. You will leave. You have to. Your life is not here. I know that too." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused, his grip gentle. "But right now, in this moment, can we pretend? Just for a little while," she should say no. She should pull her hand away and go inside and put distance between them before this became something that would break her heart. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of being strong, so tired of pretending she did not want exactly this. "All right," she whispered. "Just for a little while." He lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and courtly that it made her breath catch. Then he just held her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin, and they sat in the growing darkness and pretended that the world was not what it was. The next morning, they rode out together. Vincent moved stiffly, but he was stronger than she had expected, swinging into Thunder's saddle with only a slight grimace. Cara rode one of her mares, a gentle bay named Daisy, and carried a rifle across her saddle just in case. The morning was cool, the sun still low, and they made good time across the rolling country. Vincent guided them northwest, cutting across open range dotted with sagebrush and juniper. They saw cattle in the distance, branded with what Vincent told her was his mark. They saw no other people, which was both a relief and a worry. The emptiness meant no immediate danger, but it also meant they were alone if trouble found them. The line shack was a small cabin nestled in a shallow canyon, built from rough logs and barely large enough for one person. Vincent dismounted and went inside, returning with paper and a pencil. He wrote quickly, a short message that he folded and tucked into a crack in the doorframe where it would be visible but not obvious. "Thomas will know to look there," he said. "He will find it next time he comes through." "How long until then?" He checks the line shacks every few days. Could be tomorrow, could be 3 days from now, but he will come. They started back, taking a different route that Vincent said was more sheltered. They rode through a narrow canyon where the walls rose steep on either side and their horses' hooves echoed on the stone. Cara felt exposed despite the cover, too aware that anyone above them would have a clear shot. But they emerged safely into open country, and she began to relax. That was when they saw the riders. There were 3 of them, moving across the landscape about a mile to the east. Even at this distance, Cara could tell they were not drifting cowboys or casual travelers. They moved with purpose, spread out in a line, searching. "Dutton's men," Vincent said quietly. "We need to go, now." They urged their horses into a gallop, racing across the rough ground. Cara held on tight, trusting Daisy to keep her footing. Behind them, shouts rang out. The riders had seen them. She risked a glance back and saw them changing direction, closing the distance. "They are coming," she called to Vincent. "There is a wash ahead. We can lose them there." They plunged down a steep bank into a dry stream bed, the horses sliding on loose rock. Vincent led them east, following the wash as it twisted through the landscape. The high banks hid them from view, but they also blocked any sight of their pursuers. Cara's heart pounded in her ears. She heard hoofbeats behind them, too close. Vincent pulled up suddenly and pointed to a side canyon, barely more than a crack in the rocks. "In there, quickly." They dismounted and led the horses into the narrow space. It was barely wide enough for the animals, and they had to move sideways, pressing against the stone walls. Cara could hear the pursuing riders now, hear them shouting to each other as they searched the wash. Her breath came quick and shallow. If they looked closely, if they saw the fresh hoofprints, they would be trapped like rats. Vincent put his hand over Thunder's nose to keep the horse quiet. Cara did the same with Daisy, feeling the mare's warm breath against her palm. They waited, frozen, as the sounds came closer. The riders passed the entrance to the crack, so close that Cara could hear the creak of saddle leather. Her legs trembled with the effort of staying still. Then the sounds began to fade, moving away down the wash. They waited until there was nothing but silence. "We need to stay here for a while," Vincent whispered. "Make sure they are really gone." They stood in the narrow space for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes. Finally, Vincent judged it safe to move. They led the horses back into the wash and then out onto the open range, moving at a walk to avoid raising dust. The ride back to the homestead felt endless, every shadow a potential threat. When they finally reached Cara's property, she was shaking with reaction. Vincent helped her down from her horse, his hands steady on her waist. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I think so. That was terrifying." "I am sorry. I should never have let you come. I chose to come." "You did not force me." She looked up at him. "Did they see us? Will they know?" "I do not think so. We were too far away and we got into cover fast, but they know I am in the area. They will keep looking." "Then you are not safe here anymore." "I know. I should leave tonight, try to make it back to my ranch under cover of dark. In your condition, you will never make it. Those wounds are barely closed. A hard ride will tear them open again. What choice do I have? If I stay, I put you at risk. When they do not find me on the range, they will start checking homesteads. Yours is isolated enough that they might come here first." He was right, and she knew it. But the thought of him leaving, of never seeing him again, made something in her chest clench painfully. Last night on the porch, the warmth of his hand in hers, the way he had looked at her, all of it had felt like a door opening to a future she had not dared imagine. Now that door was slamming shut. "Then we need a better plan," she said. "You cannot just ride off and hope for the best." "I am open to suggestions." She thought hard, running through options. What if we wait until Thomas gets your message? He could come here, bring men you trust. Then you would have protection for the ride back. That could be days. Dutton's men could come here before then. So we prepare for that. We make sure I have a story ready if they come asking. We hide Thunder somewhere he will not be seen from the road. We make it look like nothing is different. Vincent studied her face. You have put a lot of thought into this. I have had time to think while we were riding. She met his eyes. I do not want you to leave, not like this, not until you are truly well and truly safe. Cara. He lifted his hand and touched her cheek, his fingers gentle. You should want me gone. You should want to be rid of this trouble. I know, but I do not. She covered his hand with hers. Stay, please, just a few more days. He looked torn, conflict clear in his expression. Then he nodded. A few more days, but at the first sign of real trouble I leave. I will not let you be hurt because of me. Agreed. They spent the rest of the day preparing. They moved Thunder into the small barn and hung sacks over the opening so he would not be visible from outside. They went over Cara's story until it was smooth. If anyone asked, she had seen no one, heard nothing. She was just a woman alone trying to make a living on her homestead. It was not far from the truth. That night they sat on the porch again, but the ease of the previous evening was gone. They were both too aware of the danger, too conscious that time was running out. Cara found herself memorizing details. The way Vincent's hair fell across his forehead, the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She wanted to hold onto these images to carry them with her when he was gone. Tell me about your ranch, she said. What is it like? Big. Too big sometimes. 20,000 acres of rangeland, most of it grazing for cattle. The house is old, built by my father before I was born. Stone and timber solid. My mother chose the spot because you could see the mountains from the porch. His voice softened. She always loved the mountains. It sounds beautiful, it is, but it is also lonely. After my father died, it was just me and the ranch hands. Thomas does what he can, but running an operation that size takes everything. I have not had time for much else. No wife, no family of your own. I came close once. Her name was Elizabeth. We were engaged, planning a wedding, but she could not take the isolation, the danger. She went back east before we could marry. He glanced at Cara. I have not let myself get close to anyone since. Until now. Until now. He took her hand again, and this time it felt natural, right? You are different. You understand this life. You do not shy away from the hard parts. Maybe I am just too stubborn to know better. Or maybe you are exactly what I have been looking for without knowing it. The words settled between them, heavy with implication. Cara's heart raced. This was moving too fast, getting too deep, but she could not bring herself to pull away. Vincent, what are we doing? I do not know, but I know I do not want to stop. He leaned closer, and she knew he was going to kiss her. She knew she should turn away, should keep this from becoming more than it already was. But when his lips met hers, soft and questioning, she kissed him back. The world narrowed to this moment, to the warmth of his mouth and the gentle pressure of his hand at her neck. It was sweet and desperate all at once. A promise and a goodbye rolled into one. When they pulled apart, she was breathless. This is complicated. I know. You are going to leave. I have to, but maybe I do not have to stay gone. He cupped her face in his hands. Come with me. Come to the ranch. Be with me. Vincent. I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a week, but I have never been more sure of anything. I want you with me. I want to wake up and see you every morning. I want to build a life together. What about Dutton? What about the danger? The ranch is safer than here. I have men I trust, people who will protect you, and I will fight to keep you safe. I swear it. She wanted to say yes. Every part of her wanted to throw caution away and accept, but fear held her back, fear of being hurt again, fear of hoping for something that might not last. I need time to think, she said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need." But she could see the disappointment in his eyes. They sat together a while longer, then went to their separate rooms. Cara lay awake, her mind churning. Could she really do this? Could she leave the homestead, the only home she had left, to go with a man she barely knew? It was madness. It was reckless. It was everything her practical nature screamed against, but it was also a chance at something real, something deep. Vincent was not James Parker. He was not offering her pretty words and empty promises. He was offering her a life, a partnership. And the way he looked at her, the way he touched her, told her that his feelings were real. She must have fallen asleep eventually because she woke to the sound of horses. Sunlight was streaming through the window, bright and accusatory. She heard men's voices, rough and demanding. Her blood went cold. She dressed quickly and grabbed the rifle, moving to the window. 3 men sat on horseback in her yard, and she recognized the type if not the faces. Hard men, the kind who wore guns like jewelry and smiled without warmth. Dutton's men. She heard a soft sound behind her and turned to find Vincent in the doorway, already dressed, his own gun in his hand. "Stay here," she whispered. "Let me handle this. Like hell, if they find me, you need to be far away from it. Vincent, please, trust me." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. She handed him the rifle and took a breath to steady herself. Then she walked to the front door and stepped outside, making sure to pull it firmly shut behind her. The man in the middle was older than the others, with gray in his beard and eyes like chips of flint. He looked at her with the casual dismissal of someone who saw women as either ornaments or obstacles. "Morning, madam," he said, but there was no courtesy in it. "My name is Cole Brennan. I work for Mr. Frank Dutton." "I know who you work for. What do you want?" "We are looking for a man, wounded, riding a chestnut stallion. You seen anyone like that?" "No, I have seen no one. I live alone. Mind if we look around, just to be sure?" "Yes, I mind. This is my property." "You have no right to be here." Brennan's smile was ugly. "Now, there is no need to be unfriendly. We are just doing our job. Mr. Dutton wants this man found. Says he is dangerous, a killer. We would hate for you to get hurt because you were hiding him." "I am hiding no one. And I would appreciate it if you would leave." One of the other men spoke up. "Maybe we should check anyway. Woman alone, she might not even know if someone was hiding in her barn." "My barn is empty. Check if you need to, but then get off my land." Brennan dismounted and the other 2 followed. They walked toward the barn and Cara's heart sank. Thunder was in there, hidden behind the sacks but still present. If they looked closely, they would find him. And then they would search the house. She heard the barn door creak open, heard the men talking in low voices. Any second now they would see something, notice something. She braced herself. Then a new voice rang out, clear and commanding. "That is far enough, gentlemen." Cara spun around. Vincent stood in the doorway, rifle raised and steady despite his wounds. He looked dangerous, looked every inch the man who owned half the county and was not afraid to defend it. "Well now," Brennan said, turning back from the barn. "Look what we found. Mr. Zane himself." "Get off this property, Brennan. You have no business here." "I have whatever business Mr. Dutton says I have. He wants a word with you." "I have nothing to say to Dutton, and if he wants to kill me, he will have to do it himself instead of sending dogs like you." Brennan's face darkened. "Careful with that mouth, Zane. You might find yourself in more trouble than you can handle." "I might. But right now, I have a rifle pointed at your chest, so I suggest you and your men ride out before this gets ugly." The tension stretched tight. Cara could hardly breathe. This could go bad so fast, could turn into bloodshed in an instant. She found herself moving without thinking, stepping between the men. "Please," she said, "just go. There is no need for violence." Brennan looked at her, then at Vincent. "This your woman, Zane, you hiding out in her bed." "Watch your mouth," Vincent said, his voice low and deadly. "Or what? You will shoot me. That will bring every lawman in the territory down on you." "Every lawman on Dutton's payroll, you mean? That does not scare me." Brennan stared at Vincent for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he spat in the dust. "This is not over. Dutton is not going to stop until he has what he wants. And this woman, she is part of it now. You thought about that?" "I think about it every second. Now get out." The three men mounted up, but Brennan paused. "Madam, you should know what you are getting into. Vincent Zane is a dead man walking. Dutton always gets what he wants, always. You attach yourself to Zane, you will go down with him. I can make my own choices, thank you. Suit yourself. But do not say you were not warned." They rode off, dust rising behind them. Cara stood frozen until they disappeared over the horizon. Then her legs gave out and she sat down hard on the porch steps. Vincent was beside her immediately, the rifle set aside, his hands on her shoulders. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "No, I am fine, just scared." She looked up at him. "They know you are here now. They will tell Dutton. I know, I am sorry. I should have stayed hidden, let you handle it. But when I heard the way they were talking to you, I could not." "What do we do now? Now I leave." "Right now, before they come back with more men." He helped her to her feet. "Get Thunder ready. I need to gather my things." "Vincent, wait. You cannot just ride off alone. They will be watching for you." "I do not have a choice. Every minute I stay puts you in more danger." "Then I am coming with you." He stopped and turned to face her. "What? You asked me last night to come with you. My answer is yes. I am coming with you." "Cara, no. After what just happened, you should want nothing to do with me. You should stay here where it is safe." "It is not safe anymore." "You heard Brennan. They will come back. And even if you are gone, they might blame me for helping you. I am already part of this." She grabbed his hand. "Besides, I do not want to stay. I want to be with you." "You are sure, truly sure, because once we leave here, there is no going back. This homestead, your life here, you would be giving it all up." "I am sure. This land is just dirt and wood. It is not worth more than my life. And if I have learned anything this past week, it is that being alone is not the same as being safe." He pulled her close, and she felt the rapid beat of his heart against her cheek. "You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known." "You said that already." "It bears repeating." He kissed the top of her head. "All right, we leave together, but we need to hurry." They moved fast, throwing together what they could carry. Cara took her mother's quilt and her father's pocket watch, a few clothes, and the money she kept hidden in a flour tin. It felt strange to leave everything else, the furniture her parents had brought from Missouri, the dishes her mother had used, the garden she had tended for 2 years. But Vincent was right. These were just things. Her life was worth more. She opened the chicken coop and scattered the birds, hoping they would survive on their own or find their way to a neighbor's property. She turned the 2 mares loose in the pasture, unable to take them but unwilling to leave them penned. They would be all right. Horses were smart. They would find water and grass. Vincent saddled Thunder while Cara changed into riding clothes. When she came out, he had tied her bags behind the saddle and was checking the cinch one more time. His face was pale, and she could see the pain he was trying to hide. "Are you sure you can ride?" she asked. "I have to. We have about an hour head start, maybe less. We need to use every minute. How far to your ranch? 15 miles. If we push hard, we can make it before dark." "Then let us go." He helped her up behind him and she wrapped her arms around his waist. She felt him tense at the pressure against his wounds, but he did not complain. He just kicked Thunder into a gallop, and they raced away from the homestead, away from everything Cara had known. They rode hard across the open country, Thunder's hooves eating up the miles. Cara held on tight, her face pressed against Vincent's back. She tried not to think about what she was leaving behind, tried to focus only on what lay ahead. But fear gnawed at her. What if they did not make it? What if Dutton's men caught them on the open range? What if Vincent's wounds opened and he could not go on? The land changed as they rode north, the flat scrubland giving way to rolling hills dotted with pine and juniper. They crossed a river, thunder splashing through the shallows, and climbed up into higher country. The air grew cooler, easier to breathe. Cara saw cattle in the distance, more than she had ever seen in one place, all bearing Vincent's brand. "We are on my land now," Vincent called back to her. "We are almost safe." But almost was not the same as completely. They kept riding and the sun climbed higher, and still there was no sign of the ranch. Vincent was flagging now, his body swaying in the saddle. Cara tightened her grip, trying to lend him her strength. "Just a little further," she murmured. "You can do this." They crested a hill, and suddenly there it was. The ranch spread out in a valley below them, buildings clustered around a main house that was exactly as Vincent had described it. Stone and timber, solid and enduring. Corrals and barns and bunkhouses, and men moving about their work, unaware of the drama playing out on the hillside. Vincent urged thunder down the slope, and someone must have seen them coming, because suddenly men were running toward them, calling out. A tall man with dark hair and a weathered face reached them first, catching Thunder's bridle. "Vincent, my God, we have been looking everywhere for you. We thought you were dead." "Not dead yet, Thomas, but we need to get inside. Dutton's men are not far behind." Thomas looked at Cara. "Who is she?" "Someone I owe my life to. Help me down." Between Thomas and another man, they got Vincent off the horse and into the house. Cara followed, her legs shaky from the long ride. Inside was cool and dim, furnished with heavy wooden furniture that looked like it had been there forever. They took Vincent to a bedroom, and Cara saw with relief that someone had already prepared it, turning down the covers and setting out water. Vincent collapsed onto the bed with a groan. "Cara, check the wounds. I think I tore something open." She moved to his side and carefully pulled up his shirt. The bandage over his side was soaked with fresh blood. "You did. Thomas, I need clean cloth and hot water." "I will get it." Thomas disappeared. Cara worked quickly, cutting away the soiled bandage. The wound had indeed reopened, blood seeping steadily. She pressed a cloth against it, applying firm pressure. Vincent hissed in pain but did not cry out. "You stubborn fool," she muttered. "I told you riding hard would do this." Had no choice. Rather bleed than get shot again. Thomas returned with supplies and Cara went to work. She cleaned the wound, packed it with fresh dressing, and bound it tightly. It would heal again, but Vincent needed rest. Real rest, not just a few days of lying down before riding off into danger. When she was done, she looked up to find Thomas watching her with an expression of deep curiosity. "Who are you?" he asked bluntly. "Cara Emerson. I found Vincent wounded on my property a week ago. I nursed him back to health, and then got caught up in his mess with Dutton." It was not a question. Something like that. Thomas looked at Vincent, who had his eyes closed but was clearly listening. "You going to tell me what happened?" Vincent opened his eyes. "Dutton's men ambushed me after I left the land office. They got 2 bullets in me before I managed to get away. I rode until I could not ride anymore and ended up at Cara's homestead. She saved my life. And now Dutton knows where I was. He knows she helped me, so she came with me." Thomas absorbed this. "Dutton is going to use this. You know that, right? He is going to say you got innocent people involved, that you are putting homesteaders at risk. Let him say what he wants. I am done playing his games. He tried to kill me. That means war. Vincent, we are not ready for war. We have ranch hands, not gunfighters. Then we get ready. Fast." Vincent struggled to sit up. Send riders to every small rancher, every homesteader who leases from us. Tell them what happened. Tell them Dutton is escalating. They need to know. And then what? Then we make a stand. Dutton wants my land. He is going to have to take it over my dead body. That is exactly what he wants. I know, but I will not roll over and let him win. Too many people depend on me. Thomas sighed. All right, I will send the riders, but you need to rest. You look like hell. I feel worse than I look. Thomas left and Cara moved to sit on the edge of the bed. You should sleep. You need to let your body heal. In a minute. First, I need to make sure you are all right. He took her hand. I am sorry. I am sorry for everything you have been through because of me. I told you I made my choice. I do not regret it. You might when this is over. Then I will deal with that when it comes. Right now, you need rest. He nodded and closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing deepened and evened out. Cara sat watching him, her mind still racing. She had left her home, her life, everything she knew. She was now in the middle of a conflict that could turn violent at any moment. It was insanity. But when she looked at Vincent's face, at the lines of pain and exhaustion, she knew she had done the right thing. Whatever else happened, she would not have to wonder what if. She would not have to spend the rest of her life alone, wondering about the wounded stranger who had collapsed on her porch. Over the next few days, the ranch became a fortress. Men rode in from all over Vincent's property, ranch hands who had worked for his father and now worked for him. Thomas organized them into watches, setting up a perimeter and making sure someone was always on lookout. Vincent chafed at being confined to bed, but his body gave him no choice. The wounds were healing slowly, and every time he tried to get up, he ended up dizzy and weak. Cara settled into the household, trying to make herself useful. There was a cook, an older Mexican woman named Rosa, who took one look at Cara and declared her too skinny. Rosa fed her constantly, and in return, Cara helped with the meals and the endless washing that came with feeding a ranch full of men. It kept her busy, kept her mind off the fact that she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. The riders Thomas had sent out began returning with news. Dutton had been busy. Several small ranchers had found their water sources mysteriously fouled. One homesteader's barn had burned to the ground. The message was clear. Side with Vincent and you would pay. It was working. People were scared. We need to push back, Vincent said at a meeting in the main room. He was up and dressed, though he still moved carefully. We cannot just sit here and wait for Dutton to pick us off one by one. What do you suggest? Thomas asked. We do not have the men or the guns for a direct fight. So we be smarter. Dutton relies on fear and intimidation. What if we take that away? What if we organize everyone he is threatening, make them see that together we are stronger? You are talking about forming some kind of alliance. Exactly. Every small rancher, every homesteader with a stake in this. We pool our resources, watch out for each other. Make it clear that an attack on one is an attack on all. It is a good idea in theory, said one of the other men, a grizzled rancher named Pete who owned land adjacent to Vincent's. But getting people to cooperate is like herding cats. Everyone has their own interests. Then we appeal to their self-interest. Dutton wants all the land. If he gets mine, he will come for theirs next. Working together is the only way any of us survive. I will talk to people, Pete said finally. See who might be willing to listen. Thank you, we need to move fast. Dutton will not sit still for long. The meeting broke up, and Cara found Vincent on the porch, staring out at the mountains. She joined him, slipping her hand into his. You think it will work? She asked. I have to. Otherwise, we have already lost. What happens if you do win? If you stop Dutton? Then maybe things can go back to normal, or as normal as they get out here. He turned to her. And maybe we can have that life I asked you to share. The one where we wake up together and build something lasting. I would like that, Marry me." The words came out sudden, unplanned. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a short time, but I know what I feel. I love you, Cara. I want you to be my wife." Her heart felt too big for her chest. "Vincent, if you need time, I understand, but I had to ask. Life is too short and too uncertain not to say what you feel." "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." His smile was like sunrise. He pulled her close and kissed her, deep and sweet, pouring everything he felt into that connection. When they broke apart, they were both breathless. "Soon," he said. "As soon as this is over, we will get the preacher out here and make it official. I am holding you to that." They stood together as the sun set, wrapped in each other's arms, and for a moment the world was perfect. But the peace did not last. 3 days later, a rider came in with news that one of the small ranchers who had sided with Vincent had been killed, shot down on his own property. It was a clear message from Dutton. "This is what happens when you oppose me." Vincent took the news hard. He had known the rancher, a man named Jack Hollies with a wife and 3 children. Now Jack was dead and his family was left with nothing. "I am bringing them here," Vincent said. "His wife and children, they cannot stay on that property alone." "Vincent, you cannot save everyone," Thomas said gently. "Maybe not, but I can try. Get some men and a wagon, bring them here." The Hollies family arrived the next day, a tired woman with haunted eyes and 3 children who looked lost and scared. Rosa took them in, found them rooms, fed them. But the damage was done. One of their own was dead, and everyone knew it was just the beginning. That night, Vincent called another meeting. This time, nearly 20 men showed up, ranchers and homesteaders and even a few townspeople who were tired of living under Dutton's thumb. They crowded into the main room and Vincent stood before them. "You all know why we are here. Frank Dutton is trying to take over this entire region. He is using fear and violence to drive people out, to force them to sell to him for nothing. Jack Hollies died because he stood up to that. We can let his death be for nothing, or we can honor it by standing together." "Easy to say when you have a big ranch and men to protect you," someone called out. "Some of us do not have that." "You are right. That is why I am proposing that we form a collective. Anyone who signs on gets the protection of everyone else. An attack on one property triggers a response from all of us. Dutton cannot fight all of us at once. And what about the law? The sheriff is in Dutton's pocket. Then we go over his head. We send word to the territorial governor, tell him what is happening here. Get federal marshals involved if we have to. That takes time we might not have. I know. But in the meantime, we protect each other. We do not let Dutton intimidate us into submission. We show him that we are not afraid." There was muttering, people talking among themselves. Finally, Pete stood up. "I am in. Zane saved my herd 3 winters ago when I lost half my pasture to snow. I owe him. And more than that, I believe in what he is saying. We are stronger together." One by one, others stood. Not everyone, but enough. By the end of the night, Vincent had commitments from 15 families, representing thousands of acres of land. It was not an army, but it was a start. Over the following weeks, the alliance held. When one homesteader's fence was cut, 5 men showed up the next day to help repair it and to make it clear they were watching. When another rancher found his cattle scattered, riders from neighboring properties helped gather them. Slowly, the tide began to turn. People stopped being afraid to stand up. Dutton responded with escalation. His men burned a hay barn. They shot at a homesteader's son, missing but making their point. The violence was getting worse, and Vincent knew it was only a matter of time before someone else died. He was right. 2 weeks after the alliance formed, Thomas came to him with grim news. "Dutton has hired guns. Real gunfighters, not just cowboys who can handle a weapon. Word is he brought in at least 5 men from New Mexico, maybe more. Then we need to be ready. Ready for what? A shootout. Vincent, these are not ranch hands. These are killers. I know. But we cannot back down now. If we do, everything we have built falls apart. Cara listened from the doorway, her stomach tight with fear. This was getting out of control. What had started as one man standing up to a bully was turning into something that could tear the whole region apart. That night, she found Vincent in his study, poring over maps and ledgers. She closed the door behind her. "This has to stop," she said. He looked up, his eyes red, rimmed with exhaustion. "I know, but I do not know how to stop it without giving Dutton exactly what he wants. Maybe there is another way. Maybe you could meet with him, try to negotiate. Dutton does not negotiate, he takes. You do not know that. Maybe if you went to him, offered some kind of compromise, he would listen. Cara, the man tried to have me killed. I do not think he is interested in compromise. But you have not tried. All you have done is fight back. What if there is a middle ground? What if there is a way for both of you to get something you want?" Vincent sat back, considering. "What do you suggest?" "I do not know exactly. But you said Dutton wants land and water rights. What if you offered to sell him some of your property? Not all of it, just enough to give him what he needs to expand without taking everything." "I swore I would never sell to him. I know. But which is more important? Your pride or people's lives?" The words hung heavy. Vincent closed his eyes. "You are right. I do not like it, but you are right. So you will meet with him. I will send word that I am willing to talk, but I do not have high hopes." The message went to Dutton the next day. The response came back surprisingly fast. Dutton was willing to meet, but only if Vincent came to town, to the hotel where Dutton kept an office. It was a calculated insult, making Vincent come to him, but Vincent agreed. "I am coming with you," Cara said. "No, it is too dangerous. You think Dutton will try something in the middle of town in broad daylight. He is not that stupid. But if I am there, it sends a message. It says you are not alone, that you have people standing with you." "Cara, I am coming. We can argue about it, or you can accept it and plan accordingly." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. "All right. But you stay close to me. And if anything goes wrong, you run. Promise me." "I promise." They rode into Sierra Vista 3 days later, accompanied by Thomas and 2 other men. The town was busy, people going about their business, but Cara felt eyes on them as they passed. Everyone knew who Vincent was, knew about the conflict with Dutton. Their arrival was going to be big news. The hotel was the finest building in town, 3 stories of brick with a wide porch. They tied their horses outside and went in. The clerk at the desk paled when he saw Vincent. "Mr. Zane, Mr. Dutton is expecting you." 3rd floor, room at the end of the hall. They climbed the stairs, Vincent leading, Cara right behind him. The door at the end of the hall was ajar. Vincent knocked and pushed it open. Frank Dutton sat behind a large desk, a big man with silver hair and a face that might have been handsome 30 years ago. 2 men stood against the walls, hard-eyed and armed. Dutton looked up and smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Vincent Zane. I did not think you had the spine to show your face in town." "I am here to talk, Dutton, not trade insults." "Fair enough. Sit." Vincent and Cara sat in the chairs facing the desk. Thomas and the other men stayed by the door. "So," Dutton said, "you wanted to meet. Here I am. I am here to discuss a solution to our problem." "Our problem? You mean the problem of you standing in my way? The problem of this conflict tearing the region apart? People have died. More will die if we do not find a way to end this. Then sell me your land, all of it. I will give you a fair price. We both know your definition of fair, but I am willing to sell you some of it. Grazing land on the eastern edge of my property. 5,000 acres. It includes water rights to the creek that runs through it. Dutton leaned back, studying Vincent. 5,000 acres, that is nothing. It is enough for you to expand your operations, and it gives you the water access you need. What about the rest? The land closer to town, the prime rangeland, that stays mine, non-negotiable. Then we have nothing to discuss. Dutton stood. I do not need your permission, Zane. I will take what I want. You will try, but I have people standing with me now. Small ranchers, homesteaders, even some folks from town. You cannot fight all of us. Watch me. The tension in the room ratcheted up. One of Dutton's men shifted, his hand moving toward his gun. Cara's heart hammered. This was about to go very wrong. Then a new voice spoke from the doorway. That will be enough, gentlemen. Everyone turned. A man stood in the doorway, tall and lean with a badge on his chest. Not the sheriff, someone else. He stepped into the room. Who the hell are you? Dutton demanded. United States Marshal Robert Casey. I am here investigating reports of violence and intimidation in this area. He looked at Vincent. Mr. Zane, I believe you sent a petition to the territorial governor. I did, yes. Well, the governor takes such matters seriously, especially when they involve potential land fraud and murder. Casey turned to Dutton. Mr. Dutton, I am going to need you to come with me. I have some questions about your business practices. This is ridiculous. I have done nothing wrong. Then you should have no problem answering a few questions. If you refuse, I can arrest you right now for obstruction. Dutton's face went red, but he nodded curtly. Fine. But you are wasting your time. We will see. Casey looked at Vincent. Mr. Zane, you and your people are free to go. I will be in touch. They left the hotel in a daze. On the street, Vincent turned to Cara. Did that really just happen? I think it did. The marshal. I did not think he would actually come. Looks like the governor took your petition seriously. Thomas was grinning. This changes everything. With a federal marshal investigating, Dutton cannot just do whatever he wants. Do not celebrate yet, Vincent cautioned. Dutton has connections. He might wriggle out of this. But the marshal was thorough. Over the next few weeks, he interviewed witnesses, examined land records, and built a case. It turned out Dutton had been involved in a lot of shady dealings, from forged deeds to intimidation tactics to outright bribery. The sheriff was implicated and arrested. 2 members of the town council resigned, and Dutton himself was charged with conspiracy and fraud. The trial was held in Tucson, and Vincent was called to testify. Cara went with him, sitting in the courtroom as Vincent laid out everything that had happened. It was a grueling 2 days, but in the end, the jury found Dutton guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and his land holdings were ordered sold to pay restitution to his victims. It was over. Vincent had won. They returned to the ranch to celebration. The men threw a party, roasting a steer and breaking out bottles of whiskey. Music played and people danced, and for the first time in months, there was joy instead of fear. Vincent found Cara watching from the porch and pulled her into his arms. We did it. It is really over. You did it. You stood up when no one else would. I could not have done it without you. You saved my life, and then you saved my soul. He kissed her softly. Now, about that wedding. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony on the ranch. The preacher came out from town, and everyone who had stood with them during the conflict was there to witness it. Cara wore a dress that Rosa had helped her sew, simple white cotton with lace at the collar. Vincent wore his best suit, and he looked so handsome that Cara's breath caught when she saw him. They spoke their vows under the open sky, with the mountains as their witness. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Vincent kissed her to applause and cheers, and Cara felt like her heart would burst with happiness. The years that followed were good ones. Vincent rebuilt his reputation, becoming known as a fair and honest rancher who looked out for his neighbors. He and Cara worked side by side, building the ranch into something even greater than his father had left him. They welcomed a son, Samuel, named after Vincent's father, in the spring of 1884. 2 years later, a daughter named Rose arrived, with her mother's dark hair and her father's blue eyes. The ranch prospered. The small ranchers and homesteaders who had stood with Vincent formed lasting alliances, helping each other through hard times and celebrating together in good times. Sierra Vista grew into a real town, with new businesses and families moving in. The land that had been wild and dangerous became something more civilized, though it never lost its edge. Cara sometimes thought about her old homestead, about the life she had left behind. Vincent had bought the property from the bank, making sure it stayed in their hands. They used it as grazing land now, but the house still stood, a reminder of where it had all begun. On their 5th anniversary, Vincent took her back there. They rode out together, just the two of them, and stood on the porch where he had collapsed all those years ago. "You ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving up this place, taking a chance on me?" "Never, not for 1 second." She took his hand. "You gave me everything I did not know I wanted. A family, a purpose, a love that feels like coming home. You gave me the same. You gave me a reason to fight, a reason to be better." He pulled her close. "I love you, Cara Zane. I love you too." They stood together in the fading light, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something lasting out of courage and hope. The Wild West was still wild, still unpredictable, still full of danger. But they had each other, and that made everything possible. As they rode back to the ranch, the sun setting behind them, Cara thought about the moment she had opened her door to find a wounded stranger on her porch. She had been so close to turning him away, so close to choosing safety over risk. But she had not, and that single decision had changed everything. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes a stranger became the love of your life. And sometimes, when you were brave enough to open your heart, the universe gave you exactly what you needed. The ranch lights came into view, warm and welcoming. Samuel and Rose would be waiting, probably fighting over something silly the way siblings did. Rosa would have dinner ready, and Thomas would be there with some story about the day's work. It was ordinary and precious, this life they had built. Vincent squeezed her hand, and she squeezed back. They rode home together, two hearts beating as one, ready for whatever the future might bring. Years continued to pass, each one adding to the tapestry of their life together. Samuel grew into a strong, thoughtful young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Rose was spirited and clever, always finding new ways to surprise them. In 1891, they welcomed another son, Thomas, named after Vincent's loyal foreman who had become like family. The ranch expanded, but never at the expense of others. Vincent kept his promise to be fair, to remember that land was not just property but home to the people who worked it. He and Cara built a school on their property, hiring a teacher so that not just their children but the children of all the ranch families could get an education. It was a small thing, but it made a difference. In 1895, Arizona Territory was moving toward statehood, and Vincent was asked to serve on the territorial legislature. He accepted, though it meant time away from the ranch. Cara supported him, managing things at home and proving herself to be as capable a rancher as any man. The hands respected her, and the neighbors knew that her word was as good as Vincent's. They grew older together, the years leaving marks in the silver of Vincent's hair and the lines around Cara's eyes, but their love never diminished. If anything, it deepened, becoming something richer and more complex than the passionate romance of those early days. They knew each other's flaws and loved each other anyway. They had weathered storms together and come through stronger. On their 20th anniversary, Vincent took Cara to the high pasture, the place where you could see the mountains and the valley all at once. They sat on a blanket, sharing a meal, watching their grandchildren play in the distance. Samuel had married a local girl, and they had given Vincent and Cara 2 grandchildren already. "Can you believe it has been 20 years?" Cara asked. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like we have always been together." Vincent pulled her close. "Thank you for saying yes. For taking a chance on a wounded stranger. Thank you for collapsing on my porch," she laughed. "Though I would have appreciated less blood. I will try to be more considerate next time I get shot. Please do." They were quiet for a while, comfortable in the silence that came from years of companionship. The sun was warm, the air smelled of pine and wildflowers, and the distant sound of the children's laughter was the sweetest music. "You think we made a difference?" Vincent asked suddenly. "Do you think any of this mattered?" "Of course it mattered. Look around you. This ranch, these families, the school, the alliances we built. All of it came from you refusing to back down, from us standing together." "From us," he repeated. "I like that. Nothing I did would have meant anything without you. We made a good team, the best." The years rolled on. They celebrated more anniversaries, welcomed more grandchildren. Vincent eventually retired from politics, content to spend his remaining years on the land he loved with the woman he loved. Cara's hair turned silver, but she never lost her strength or her sharp mind. She still rode every day, still kept the household running smoothly, still managed to surprise Vincent after all their years together. In the spring of 1910, they sat on the porch of the ranch house, now expanded and improved but still the same at its heart. Samuel ran the day-to-day operations now, with his sister Rose managing the business side. Thomas, their youngest, had gone to university and was studying to be a lawyer, determined to fight for justice the way his father had. "We did all right, did we not?" Vincent said. "We did better than all right. We built something wonderful. I could not have done it without you. I know, I remind you of that regularly." She smiled and took his hand. "We did it together. Everything together." "Together," he agreed. "That is how it should be." They sat in the warm spring sunshine, 2 people who had found each other through chance and chosen each other through love. Behind them was a lifetime of memories, challenges overcome, joys shared. Ahead was whatever time they had left, and they would face it the same way they had faced everything, side by side. The ranch would go on after them, passed down to their children and their children's children. The land would endure, shaped by their stewardship but belonging ultimately to itself. And the story of how it all began, with a wounded cowboy on a lonely porch, would become family legend, told and retold until it took on the quality of myth. But to Vincent and Cara, it was simply their story. The story of how they found each other, how they fought for what mattered, how they built a life of meaning and love. It was ordinary and extraordinary all at once, like most great love stories. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, they remained on the porch, hands clasped, hearts intertwined. They had started as strangers, become partners, and ended as 2 halves of one whole. It was everything they had ever wanted and more than they had ever dared hope for. The Wild West had been tamed, at least a little. But some things remained wild and untamed, and the greatest of these was love. Their love had survived bullets and bad men, distance and danger, time and change. It would survive anything because it was built on something stronger than circumstance. It was built on choice. Every day they chose each other. Every day they chose love. And in the end, that was what mattered most. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky, and somewhere on the ranch, someone started playing a harmonica, a sweet, sad melody that drifted on the evening air. Vincent squeezed Cara's hand, and she squeezed back, and they sat together as night fell. Two people who had lived a full and beautiful life, grateful for every moment, ready for whatever came next. It was a perfect ending and a perfect beginning, all wrapped into one.